All right. So we were just getting started on talking about the four uh, ways of progress, and that are you there? I think your
Yep.
screen is frozen.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I here
All
now?
right.
You see me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. So one is uh, the fast easy. The other one is the hard easy, and then there is the slow and hard path, and then there is the slow and easy path. Um, the slow hard path is the path that most Westerners are on. And that in the teachings of the Buddha, it's recommended many times. One place is in the Dhammapada, another one is in Sutta number 22, another place is in Sutta number 38, and many places where it's stated that the teachings of the Buddha are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. All right. But most of the students who are practicing, it's hard in the beginning and maybe hard in the middle, and it only gets good at the end. But that's not the way that anapanasati can be practiced. It can be practiced good in the beginning, and that's what leads into the slow, easy path of anapanasati. Um, can you turn your camera off and back on because your video is frozen? There you go.
Better now?
Uh huh. Okay, so the thing that makes the distinction between the slow and easy and the slow and hard is when do we start to develop right attitude? That if we practice and practice and practice sati, mindfulness, practice and practice investigation, practice and practice taking effort, but we're not taking necessarily the right effort that leads to um, the right attitude, then the path will be very, very slow. And that it can be very hard. And the way that it can be hard is that let's do this way with the difference in distinction between two woeful states. One is called disgust, and the other one would be called despair. Now, what they mean by disgust, which is actually the right way of doing it, is when we see the dukkha in the world and then we become disgusted with the way that we have been raised. And then the further being disgusted is when we recognize how much of that disgusting world that we have been, we've been lied to, we've been cheated, we have been taken out of our nurturing environment into a critical environment. And so we become critical of that critical world. And we become disgusted with it until we realize that, wait a minute, it's the fact that I bought that critical world that makes it disgusting, that what I'm really disgusted with is not the world, it's what I've made of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's when we bring in the decision. I've got to make some changes here. This is where Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about there's a choice to be made. Now, if we're practicing right attitude right from the very beginning, then we are going in the right direction. But if we don't have right attitude, then that disgust mixes with doubt. And that the first primary doubt is, who's going to help me get this done? And so we rely upon gurus, we rely upon teachers and sociologists and medical doctors and all kinds of people, including priests and gods. And we're all wind up looking for a mommy to change our diaper because we have pooped in our diaper. All right.
Mm.
And when we come to the conclusion that mommy's not going to change our diaper, that we're an adult now and we're pooping in our own diaper and it's time for us to clean up our own diaper, when we recognize that nobody's going to help me clean up my diaper, that's when the dark night of the soul sets in, is the realization. Just an example of that would be Mother Teresa, because it's well documented in her memoirs, that for many, many years, well longer than 20 years, she was in the dark night of the soul because for so many years before that, she had prayed to Jesus, she had prayed to God, God, do this and do that, and give me this and give me that, and I want this and I want that, and God never delivered. Not only did he not deliver, he never sent a non delivery notice. And she became disgusted with the fact that God was not talking to her. I mean, God, and look at all the books and whatnot, and God's been talking to all kinds of people all the time. Why won't God talk to Teresa? And so she gets disgusted. Well, in that lineage and that way of looking at it, that if you can't get God to help you, guess what? You're screwed because of original sin. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah. You were born in original sin, but you who do you and in Romans 5 it states, who do you think you are that you're good? Only God is good, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of mentality. So you've got to have Jesus as your savior, and then the dark night of the soul comes is when they recognize, guess what? Jesus didn't do his job. He didn't save me.
Mm. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is then the issue of the dark night of the soul. Now we can have it phrased in different ways, but the solution to that is to practice correctly from the beginning, in the sense that, wait a minute, it's not going to be a God or a Jesus or a mommy or a preacher or a guru or a meditation technique is going to do it for me. That I've got to put in the right effort myself, and I've got to do it with the attitude that I can do this. And so you can
Mm-hmm.
see that there's levels of doubt in there. The first level of doubt is, who can I get to fix me? The answer is nobody. Nobody's going to do it. And this is the difficulty with most meditation practices, because all those guys that are writing these books and saying all of those techniques are wrong and bad, only my technique is good, is he's setting himself in that position of being the savior. And
Mm-hmm.
if you do it my way, then you'll be okay. So now that whole concept of getting help from the outside is reinforced by these books. Many books will say in the beginning, if you only follow what I've got in this book, you'll be great. And so
Yeah.
they promise it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And really, what it's all about, it's about changing our attitude. And that attitude doesn't change easily, because we have been in the attitude of a victim or a loser, or been in the position of we need help, or only a victim needs help. If you've got two dogs out there fighting and one of them's on top of the other, growling and snarling, and the other one is whimpering, guess which dog needs help?
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when we recognize it like that, that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wait a minute, I do not have to be in the position of being a victim, that I have been practicing anapanasati and getting benefit from it, and being able to bring up these good feelings, maybe not right from the actual very beginning, though if people were practicing correctly, they would. So that then that doubt about, am I up to this task? Because I can't get anybody else to help me, I've got to do it myself. And once I start practicing correctly, then I begin to get that benefit for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the first step on the noble path may in fact be very easy for the student, and it may come very quickly in his newfound meditation practice when he comes to the conclusion that he knows what hindrances are and he knows that he can remove them from his mind anytime,
Yeah.
that he can remember, we can remove them. And so, in fact, in the Sutta number 48, in the Kambasani Sutta, it states that the first knowledge is the knowledge that no matter how obstructed the mind is with hindrances, that I can throw those things out. That is um, confidence. The Pali
Mm.
word is shraddha. The
Yeah.
word shraddha or sada is often translated as faith. But then we have the problem of no, it's not faith, because many, many people have faith in Christianity and they get nowhere except maybe caught in the Capitol building trying to take over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. In
Yeah.
other words, that faith, there's no actual evidence. Even when you look at the priesthood, you still don't find any evidence. What do you find there is pedophilia, preachers with his fingers in the till, trying to get his own jet plane, and it always becomes ordinary Dhamma in the sense of it's got money in it, and it's got
It's
fame, and
all about power.
it's all about power and fame and money and all of that kind of stuff because of the delusion that we have that if I have power and fame, then I will feel secure.
Yeah.
To where the feeling of security should be developed directly.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel safe and secure and comfortable and happy, and nobody knows you at all. You don't have to have fame. You don't have to have the power. That in fact, people who have fame and power wind up generally being pretty miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Very
mean, look at
few
Donald Trump.
that
Does
I
he
can
look
think of.
happy right now?
Even just down to the executives in my company. You know, I'll talk to them in conversation, and they'll say, I need to do whatever you're doing or whatever. They don't want to give up what they need to give up. They don't want to do that, you know.
Well, that's an interesting thing about the Dhamma is that instead of and most people practice it this way because of the idea that we have that's so built deep into our culture is actually the law of karma. Even though this is normally referred to as a Hindu thing, Christianity and Islam are firmly established in this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is sin, right?
Hmm.
And that what they have the idea is that oh, in order to get the reward, I have to give up all of this. I have to stop doing the bad and stop receiving the rewards of the bad before I can do the good and then get the rewards of the good.
Hmm.
But the answer to that is no. If we're practicing anapanasati correctly, so that we get the benefits of it in the sense of a sense of well-being, a sense of um, well-being, let's say.
Yeah. Hmm.
That if we have a sense of well-being, that if we have developed that, if we have the confidence that I can handle anything, I can handle this moment, I can handle the next moment, everything is going to be okay. I've survived to this far. I will continue to survive. And even if I don't survive, I can handle the transition from survival to non survival quite well, thank you. In other words, I can die
Hmm.
nobly. I can handle that too. I can handle anything, even my own death. When we come to that conclusion, that's when let us say for the example of the executive, once
Mhm.
he realizes that he's already really okay,
Yeah.
then he's able to see that, well, wait a minute, then I can do without all of that other stuff. That we now can practice correctly the four requisites, but we can't practice the four requisites when we think that all of that big stuff that I wanted was going to make me happy. That's back to that first doubt that we were talking about. That
Right.
where am I going to get my happiness? Am I going to get my happiness by having a Jaguar and a sign on my big office door saying that I'm the boss? Do we get our happiness from that kind of thing? Well, there's been an
Or
awful lot. Go ahead.
the value attachment, the value that they place. It's hard to convince someone like that who's so steeped in the culture of valuing these external objects
Hmm.
that that is a not it's a silly childish mind state. It's not it's and it's painful. It's hard to convince them to come out of that value system.
Well, you can't convince them, and that's what I'm saying. We don't even need to try to convince them.
Yeah.
That they, in fact, once they recognize that they've got what they were looking for because they've built it on the inside, then they can stop looking for what they couldn't find on the outside, and they stop looking for it there and start relishing the fact that they found it on the inside.
Hmm.
Okay. In other words, how to say it? Oh, let's think of it like this. Let us say that you're trying on a new set of clothes. One way of doing it is by taking all of the old clothes off and becoming naked, and then putting all the new clothes on. And
Hmm.
that's terrifying, that point of time of being naked. And people are absolutely terrified of that. That guy's not about to give up his Jaguar and his sign on the wall and his big office and all of that and become naked again, because the promise is that the new clothes are not that much better than the old clothes anyway.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So a
Hmm.
new way of doing it would be to start putting on new clothes. And as we do, we can recognize, wait a minute, I need to take that. I would feel more comfortable now with this new shirt that I've got if I would take a moment and take the old shirt off and then put the new shirt back on. And so, because we already know how that new shirt works, we all know how it does the job and all of that. Now I can let go of the old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's a major process
Yeah.
that we have in Western Buddhism because it's built into all the religions. In other words, you have to start doing good for a long time before you get the benefit of your good behavior.
Yeah. I think,
Uh,
yeah, and that's the major difference between this teaching and a lot of other teachings, in which this teaching we go straight into let's do it. Let's go into doing the practice. Whereas most other teachings start with your whole mindset is wrong, and
hmm.
you need to completely rethink life altogether, rather than, you know, in this method, it's boiling the lobster, slowly. You know, start out in some nice water and then just heat it up ever so slightly.
Yes,
Mm.
that's the way of looking at it.
Yeah.
The Buddha used the analogy of a log in the bog can't be set on fire. It has to be pulled out of the bog. But even when it's pulled out of the bog, it still needs time for the gravity to pull the water down through the log as well as the sunshine on top of the log to get the top of the log dry enough to set it on fire. Okay. So um, the way that we're in that regard, we can do that seclusion thing, or pulling the log out of the bog from time to time, temporarily, like going to a retreat or whatnot like that. But we don't have to give up the whole world. I have a lot of students, in fact, who are looking for a monastery to go to immediately,
Hmm.
rather than recognizing the benefits of going to that monastery are available to you right here, right now, if you practice correctly. And
Yeah,
that a lot of people go to the Wat, go to the temple, go to the forest retreat, and are not practicing there correctly, and they're just as miserable in the Wat or in the forest as they were in the executive suite.
it's like you said, they're contemplating taking off their clothes, and they're as quick as they can. They're thinking, "Where's another set of clothes I can put on real quick? You know,
Mm-hmm.
let me get some rites and rituals and some things I can attach to, because I'm becoming unattached to these other." It's like
Mm-hmm.
the addict who goes to another addiction, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly so. You're right. So this is the problem with these other practices, is that they're missing something right from the very beginning. And so an example of that is that you have the intention of baking a cake. Well, all cakes have a certain number of ingredients to them. Almost always a cake will have egg. Almost always a cake will have milk and butter, or perhaps oil if it's a commercial cake. They don't put butter in them, they put butter substitutes and whatnot. But always a cake has flour, and
Mm.
always a cake has sugar. So if you are missing ingredients, especially a key ingredient like flour or sugar, then whatever you make is not going to be cake.
Hmm.
Okay. And that the Buddha talks about this in the sense of gathering together the factors. The word samadhi actually is what that word means. Most of the people in Western Buddhism think that it means concentration, to where samadhi actually means gathering together the factors, just like you would get all the ingredients of a cake together before you make a cake. You get your ingredients together, all the ingredients,
Right.
okay? And that many people then live with whatever they're made out of the ingredients that they have. But if they don't have the flour and the sugar, then they are eating something that is not really cake.
Hmm.
And they're dissatisfied with it. And so they're not willing to give up their old diet at all.
Yeah.
All right. But when you
Yeah.
have all of the ingredients, when you have samadhi, that means that you have all of the mental ingredients that you need to
Hmm.
make the cake. Okay.
Hmm.
And so this is what is important to recognize, that anapanasati is nothing but a detailed description of how to get into first jhana, and
Yeah.
that the jhana factors are there. What are the jhana factors? Number one, jhana factor is freedom from the hindrances. In other words, the mind is already in a wholesome state. We intend to bring it into a wholesome state. That's one's right effort. Once we keep bringing that mind into the wholesome state over and over and over again, we gain confidence that we can do it over and over and over again. That confidence then is like the confidence of a winner, the confidence not of a loser, because the loser has the mentality of, oh, this is hard. And I hear the students use the word hard and try a lot, which is the wrong attitude. The right attitude is, never mind, start again.
Hmm.
The right
Yeah.
attitude is, I can do this, I can handle this one. And so when we
Yeah.
practice that way, that means that we're gathering that joy and that sukha. Sukha and piti are the Pali words, and the word piti, I think, is really, really misunderstood a lot. But when we have the piti and the sukha together, what we mean by that sukha basically is a continuum. And the continuum all has the qualities of safety, security, confidence, uh, um, contentment. Those are all part of sukha. And the word sukha actually is direct opposite of dukkha. In other words, if you're feeling comfortable, secure, uh, content, safe, secure, then that's what we mean by that's the opposite of dukkha. Because what is dukkha? Dukkha is being unsafe, unsecure, unsatisfied, uncontent, right? And
Hmm.
so sukha means to practice getting into the state of being comfortable and content. And then when we do that over and over again, then that attitude comes in, I can do this. And that's when the piti arises. And the piti is the same thing as the sukha with an additional ingredient of energy built into it in the sense of yeehaw. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, an example would be in the big professional football games that when the guy makes a touchdown, what does he do immediately after that? Immediately after he does the touchdown, some of
Does a
them spike the
dance,
ball.
spikes the
He does
ball.
a dance. He dances, right? And one of the things he does with the dance is the arms are in the air. Okay, this is it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I'm the championship. I'm the champion here. I did it. I did it. Okay. We need to develop that attitude in our meditation practice that, hey, I could do this. And if we practice that right from the beginning, then when we get into that disgust of the world, we can say, hey, I can handle being disgusted with the world.
Yeah, I can throw it out. I think because when you're in those moments of if say the touchdown, you it's a fantastic moment in retrospect, but you couldn't even say you're really having the experience. It's purely happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't have that experience. That experience is happening, and you can think back on it. But
Mm-hmm.
when it happened, it was just happening.
It was just happening, right? Exactly. We set the stage. All
Hmm.
right. An example of that would be that the pistol has been bought, the pistol has been cleaned, the pistol has been loaded, the pistol has been cocked, and now all we need to do is pull that trigger, and now a whole sequence of events is set off that, let us say, in that process, the bullet flies out of the chamber, but from the time of that from the beginning until that bullet actually flying is a long, complex process.
Hmm.
The bullet has to be manufactured. It's got to have the jacket and the primer and the grains of gunpowder or modern smokeless powder, plus the ball that has to be completely fitting into the barrel exactly correct. But then you can see that when the trigger is pulled, that throws a spring which moves the hammer, which hits the firing pin, and the firing pin then hits the firing cap. That causes a little bit of a fire, which then sets the smokeless powder off, and then that gas causes the bullet to go out of the chamber. Look at all these little causes and effects that are in there, one after another, after another, after another, after another. And this is what you're talking about the experience. That
Hmm.
once we set off that chain of events, pity will naturally be there, just like the guy who did all of that work to get that touchdown. And once he recognizes he's made that touchdown, that he is successful, that's when that elation comes. So being elated, that's the pity of the yeehaw, I can do this. Wow, this is so nice, is the other way of saying it.
Hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
I've done it. Yeehaw. And so this is actually part of the package of things that we have to get together in order to, let us say, be in that state. It's a state of success. Now, how many years does somebody have to practice a particular method, let's say, of noting, and then going through the dark night of the soul before they finally recognize, hey, dark nights of the soul are nothing. I can handle those too.
How many years?
How many years does it take of going through dark nights of the soul before we recognize, hey, dark nights of the soul are nothing. I can handle that too. That's just another obstruction.
Yeah, you can throw anything out whenever you want to, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Exactly. And that when we have that confidence, that shraddha,
Yeah.
when we have that right attitude that I can do this, then the dark night of the soul is not so dark. Now, there's another way of looking at it, and that is that there is a kind of a dark night of the soul upon the student recognizing they've got no soul. I mean, how dark can a night get for a soul when that soul recognizes that he doesn't even exist? There's no
That's a
soul.
paradox. There's no soul to recognize the
Uh-huh.
lack of soul.
Exactly, exactly. And so in that realm of it comes from the position, and the Buddha talks about it a lot in the sense of I had it and now I've lost it. Poor me. I have lost something that I used to think and that I had. And so recognizing that I don't have any soul when I have been counting on one going to heaven all of these years, that's why these delusions are really hard for people to give up, is because they don't want to see that in fact there's no soul there.
Mm-hmm.
But we can talk about it in the dark night because of the despair, but that despair is coming from the doubt of who am I going to get to fix me because I can't fix myself. Now that we're working with this, we can recognize, hey, I can fix myself. I don't need any help. I've got this wired.
Yeah.
I can handle this and I don't need any help.
I think that the maturity aspect of the path, for me, it's accelerated maturity. Like that's kind of what the path is. This is an accelerated maturity, and nobody ever brings that up. Or rarely do you see anything about developing confidence when you're talking about waking up. I
Mm-hmm.
think so much so that I don't know if Ken Wilber. Have you heard of Ken Wilber?
I've
Uh,
heard the name. I don't know too much about
he
him.
was really big in the early 2000s, and he developed this thing called integral theory, which is basically based on self-development and integrating your previous learning into your new learning. But he wrote a book about waking up, growing up, and showing up, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That he was afraid that he thought people needed to learn to grow up before they woke up, right? Or something like that. But I think taught properly, it's handled all in the Buddhist teaching. It's all
It's a
encompassing, really.
package, right?
Yeah.
It's a package. We have to get the ingredients together, and which one we get first is not necessarily the important point, but rather that we do have them all. And so you're right. Growing up is really what this is all about. It's becoming high quality, high class human being as opposed to behaving with each other like we did when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
when we're really, really little kids, we play with everyone. It is okay. I mean, black, brown, dark, fat, big, little 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds don't make those kind of decisions and distinctions. And so every 4-year-old is good for another 4-year-old. By the time they're 6, however, things are beginning to change. We're beginning to become critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so criticism in the child is what we grow up as, so that we behave childishly in our criticism. I'm better than he is. My Dhamma is better than his, etc., like that. And we are actually in our culture trained in competition. Competition is
Mm-hmm.
everywhere within the educational system. That's what sports are all about. I don't know of any sports that are non-competitive.
Yeah.
The Olympics is basically the model that every school has, but you can see how the Olympics, that the guy who wins gets the gold medal and he gets higher than everybody else, and his ribbon is bigger, and then second and third place, and then bronze and silver and all of that. And if you don't get the bronze, then you got nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing is about getting into university. And the same thing is in the second grade of who got an A and who got a B in mathematics and all of that. So
Yeah.
all of that competition is built in. And that's also the idea of being up to scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we develop that quality of completely growing up, what that means is that we're putting away that childish competition, and we begin to, let us say it like this, we become the mommy, the original mommy that is nurturing to every kid.
Mm-hmm.
That a good mommy is going to be nurturing to every kid, no matter how bad the kids are to each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. And so
Yeah.
this is the real growing up that we need to do, is the growing up beyond the competition, so that we
Right.
recognize that, hey, we human beings have built quite a mess for ourselves here called human society, and that we can deal with each other better than the way that we've been doing it. That we don't
I
have to be constantly in a battle or in a fight. But guess what? The one, Fritz Perls, by the way, psychologist back in the 1970s, he was at Esalen. He was the one who had the chair, but he was also the one who came up with the concept of top dog, underdog. Or there are winners and there are losers. And the idea then is that the bottom dog, the one who is the loser, the one who is upside down on his back trying to defend himself, is basically the position that we all have. That really, if we are strong and tough, then we don't go around trying to put other people down and put them in the victim's position. That if you're truly a winner, we see everybody as a winner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the tough
Yeah.
dog that is on top is only the tough dog because he doesn't and is on top because he doesn't want to be on the bottom, and that's all they can see. So these executives say, well, if I didn't have this big office with my big name on the sign and the big car out in the parking lot, then woe is me, who would I be? In other words, if I'm not the winner here, then I'm going to be the loser.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's not a position of strength. It's actually a position of a charlatan. And who is a charlatan? The loser who is pretending to be the winner.
Mm-hmm.
But the real winner, the real strength, doesn't have to show off his strength.
And it's not
Those
dependent.
Right, it's not dependent because I've got it on the inside. I don't need to compete with, let us say in this regard, other meditation teachers, that I can let those meditation teachers teach what they want, and there still can be good friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't have to say, because I disagree with what you're saying, you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because in that regard, we're all bad.
Yeah, and in regards to teaching, I mean, it goes back to karma too. I mean, you can't control the outcome of what's gonna happen with the student. You're not in control of what the outcome is of your teaching, or whether even if your teaching is successful and the student learns what you wanted them to learn, whether that's going to lead to anything good. It could lead to someone just giving up and being a lazy bum for the rest. Who knows? But that's your judgment call on what that are being attached to outcomes.
Right, being attached to outcome. But in fact, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
What we're doing here is just having a delightful conversation about the Dhamma.
Mm.
And if there's anything that's to be transmitted, it's not the actual words that I'm saying, but it's my attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what's being transmitted, is the students can see that I'm not dry and dour and talking about something that I too hope to get someday,
Mm-hmm.
but rather I'm talking about this is the way things are right now. You too can have a ball. You too can enjoy. And so most of the students, when they call and talk on Skype here, they really like it, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
Is to get people into the state of laughing and joking and giving them partially the attitude that's transmitted is if I have that winner's attitude, if I have the attitude of joy and security, then that can be transmitted to the student.
Yeah. Looking back, it's kind of clear that the techniques and the pointers were helpful, but the what you're saying, the transmission of the attitude, is the what you're after, or what keeps you. um it's like a north star. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
the thing that
I
you can
do
see that
exactly.
clearly. Yeah.
That in all of the times that I had with all of the various teachers, and mostly in India, it was only when I got to Wat Suan Mok, and I got it right from the very beginning with Achan Po, that I knew that Achan Po really cared about me, that I felt part of the family. I felt accepted, not just another kid coming to the Wat, but rather that, um, how to say it, it was the attitude that he had. But it wasn't just him, it was that attitude that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa had of come right in, sit right down, let's have a ball together.
Hmm.
Let's transmit the Dhamma in that way, is that it's joyful. It's Bhikkhu Buddhadasa constantly was chuckling. When I talked to him, he was just chuckling nonstop.
Yeah.
And so that attitude that we're talking about right from the get-go is what keeps us from going into these dark nights of the soul, because the dark night of the soul is a place of despair. How can I possibly get out of this place that we're in? To where when we have the right attitude, we can say, hey, that's a bunch of crap out there, but that doesn't mean that I'm completely covered in crap. And so we can
It's
see that there is that disgusting quality, but I do not have to succumb to that disgust so that I go into a state of despair.
and I'm sure that's something that your father or your parents never really communicated to you, or communicated in that way. It maybe there was a dependency. I know in my relationship with my parents, there's a dependency on outcome
Mm-hmm.
with my mom, right? But there's a felt dependency of outcome, that the unconditional love takes uh, a developed mind to actually um, to have. It takes a developed mind to actually sincerely have unconditional love, because otherwise, for most people, they're wrapped up in the egoic. What am I going to get? How am I getting screwed? Um, how do I stack up in this relationship?
Right, exactly. And you can also call that the competition, the competitive, or the other word that I'm using is the word critical. In other words, we do not have unconditional love, we have conditional love, and the conditions on that love are this set of rules that we have. Do you match up against this set of rules or these conditions that we have set? And that's the hard part a lot of people don't understand about that second fetter. Second fetter means that it's right up front. We got to deal with it very soon. And that second fetter of in the Pali is called Silabasa Paramasa. Silabata Paramasa means that we attach to these rites, rules, rituals, these conditions. We put that conditioning in that this is good and this is bad. A messy room is bad and a clean room is good. Therefore, I will love you when you clean your room. And we put everything as a condition.
Mm.
But nurturing means that, like and the good example is a new mom with a new infant, that when that infant does its first poopy after a couple of days, everybody in the house is very happy that he's doing a poopy, right? That's going to
Hmm.
change.
Yeah.
That's going to change. And we're going to start. He is not going to be able to poop in his new diaper unconditionally. Now he's going to have conditions. He's going to have to go do it on his potty. He's going to have to do it in the toilet, etc., like that. And so this is the idea that when we are a very, very baby, young infant, that the love is unconditional. And we long for that nurturing, but we wind up living in a critical world. Mommy becomes critical after we gain 3, 4 years.
Yeah. I um, since the last time I talked to you, I've probably sat one time, but it was a pretty good one because I just happened upon my first memory, which was standing at the screen door while my parents were fighting and my dad slamming the door on me and getting in the car and squealing tires off, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And never really in my life again. Um, but the connection happened. I was able to see the emptiness that relationship left, which was something I could never. People kept telling me, I counselors in school would say, um, would try to counsel me on, you know, being a parent or being, having a single mom. And I remember going to counselors, but it was not anything that I could ever connect with because it was just an absence. You see what it
Mm-hmm.
was? I didn't know what I was missing at all. But now that I have kids, I was able to see myself in that moment just as unconditionally as I see my kids now.
Mm-hmm.
And the the forgiveness that you or the unconditional love that you have to have for yourself is, it's a powerful thing to see yourself as a child
Mm-hmm.
immediately, and yeah, not that not that that was just and it was a very emotional thing, but I think that self-forgiveness is one of those knots that creates it creates your conditioning. It's
Mm-hmm.
a knot that is very difficult to untie because it's very hard to forgive yourself because you are so self-critical.
Exactly so. Now, here's something that we can look at for a moment, and that is that issue of forgiveness means that you have already been critical
Hmm.
and that you have judged that part of yourself or the other person as being bad, and then now we need to forgive them for being bad because they were judged, they were, criticized. What we're looking for here is to change that sequence so that we don't need forgiveness because we didn't do the judgment in the first place, that you were already naturally okay.
Yeah.
And we can keep coming back to that point. And so, in that regard, um, looking at it from the fact that the nurturing is done by the mommy, by the parent, and it's the child who is the beneficiary of that nourishment, that these are the roles that we have to take on inside of our own interior world, is for the parent inside to stop judging and being a critical parent and start being a nurturing parent so that the child inside feels secure and safe, not judged. Okay,
Hmm.
this is why
Yeah.
we work on directly of changing the unwholesome thoughts are critical thoughts. There are thoughts of work that needs to be done, or are things that have to be accomplished, uh, future jobs to do,
Hmm.
and so uh,
And
this
while that's a compelling story, what I'm telling you, it it's much simpler than that. I mean, it's as simple as throwing it out and realizing that you can be an adult and you never even needed the dad to be mature because you don't need to copy someone. That's not being mature.
that's
Being
exactly
mature.
right. Uh huh.
Mm.
That's exactly right. In fact, you could go so far as to say is the Sila Bhatta Paramasa is nothing but the child copying the daddy. That's exactly right. That's the Sankara, or the learned behavior, the way that we learn how to feel. We got those feelings from daddy. Daddy taught us how to feel. Mommy taught us how to feel. Guess what? Mommy and daddy didn't feel good, not all the time. And so they may have not been the best model to learn how to feel. And so coming into that position of non critical is the same way the Buddha talks about it as unwholesome thought. The unwholesome thought is, I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I want to get rid of that, etc. Thoughts of actually of trying to fix something And in the process of fixing things, we damage it often. A child will, whenever a child takes a clock, what do we do with it? We take it apart. Do we ever get that clock back together? Many times, no. No, we don't get it back together again. And so that's the whole idea of critical, means that we keep taking things apart. We keep inspecting it. We keep looking for this or that and the other thing. But nurturing is a completely different way of looking at it. Nurturing means that it's okay like it is. I don't have to take it apart to fix it. It's all right like it is. Okay? And so we take on the nurturing role of a nurturing mommy and nurture our deeper inside self by having wholesome thoughts. The wholesome thoughts are nurturing thoughts. Thoughts of, this is nice. Thoughts of, well, what a nice day this is. Oh, what a wonderful world, if we're using Satchmo's language.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this nurturing, this joyful way is something that needs to be practiced over and over and over again so that we can have that joy, that nurturing quality when we get into being really disgusted with our behavior.
Yeah.
And we become really disgusted with how I used to do things. But we could do that with, instead of, oh, poor me, oh, that's disgusting, and I don't know how to get out of it, and I'm full of despair. That's the dark night of the soul. But instead, when we come across the disgusting, we say, yuck, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah. I
And so
saw
it's
some of
all
that.
about that nurturing.
I saw some of that today, and usually I see people and the way they'll react to Kason, because I do try to be, I mean, I don't even try. I really have a hard time being upset with him doing anything. And I feel the expectation from others to be upset. And typically I don't engage with it. When he's at daycare, I don't want him to get kicked out of daycare. We have to maintain daycare. So I try to be skillful in playing up whoever's attitude I'm dealing with. So if he's doing something and it's annoying someone, I'll hurry him along. But I could tell one of his teachers, she was a little frustrated at first, and he came through and he saw something on a table that he liked and he started playing with it. And I was worried she was going to and I saw she was frustrated. But then I saw her, she's an older lady, actively recognize that she was getting grousy, and she turned it around. She said, "You know what? You can just have that." And she just let him have it, and he walked out the door. I
How
see.
nurturing of her. Wow, that was great
Yeah,
that she was able to change.
yeah.
She woke up. That's excellent. I
uh,
actually had exactly the opposite happen one time when I was a really, really little kid. And I think that it was like parent teacher meeting or something like that. And the parents came to the room. And so all the kids that didn't have any home place to stay had to come to the school. And there was a great big daycare center there that one
mm,
time. And I remember seeing this really funny old bag. And I go and I open this funny old bag, and this lady screeches at me. And the next thing I know, the next day, I'm in the principal's office for being accused of being a thief. And my mom
oh
and
my
dad
gosh.
called to the school and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't trying to steal anything. I just found a really interesting old bag in the daycare. I didn't know that that was this lady's handbag.
I distinctly remember being in daycare and being force fed things I don't like by this older lady in an angry way. She would force it in my mouth, force food in my mouth. And there were certain foods I had a hang up about, well into my 20s even, because just of these memories of her, you know, forcing, food on me. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that you can remember, but you probably don't actually remember all of the other things that happened where adults were being angry and critical of a child. And that's
Yeah.
where the children learn that criticism is from the critical adults. And so, what we
Yeah.
need in daycare is not critical old ladies, the nuns of, Pink Floyd's song. Okay.
Yeah. Eat your meat. You can't have any pudding if you don't
But
eat your meat.
because we have lived in a critical society with full of criticism in the educational system, now moment by moment we are critical of ourselves. We've got work to do. You can't be happy until you get this done, and all of that kind of mentality. But the answer is that all you have to do is clean out the mind, and the any job that you needed to be done that you were thinking about in the mind, once you pull that out of the mind, there's nothing to do now.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like intentionally taking your to-do list and erasing every item on it. And then there's nothing to do because you've got a to-do list is empty. And how is it empty? Is because I didn't scratch off saying I've got that done and I've got this done. Rather, I erase it and say, no, don't have to do that. Don't have to do this. Everything is already good. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Well, I'm glad I met you rather than a therapist because your method's a lot easier, a lot less complicated.
It is. It's a very, very simple method. The teaching of the Buddha is very simple. I've had really excellent conversations with Western senior monks, especially my friend Dhamma, who's been a monk now for about 30 years. And we all always go, at least half of our conversation is about how small the Dhamma really is. The teachings of the Buddha is so small that it's only a handful of leaves. It's only just, now for many students, that's quite a handful in the beginning.
Mm.
But once you understand it, it's a very easy thing to do. Anapanasati, take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy your life.
It's a beautiful thing. I hear you've got calls happening.
Yes,
I'll let somebody
this,
else benefit
yeah,
from
yeah,
this.
this is Clint calling, and before it was Dan.
Okay.
So,
I sent a couple of people your way. You may have a couple more people calling you if you got
uh,
time, but
all right. Well, I think that we've gotten kind of back together in the sense of knowing that the real way of looking at it is let's start nurturing ourselves and stop being so critical. And every time that we remember to be nurturing, let's be nurturing.
great talking.
That's the sati.
Yeah. Thanks, Dhammarato. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll see you again, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna we got it worked out. I'm gonna try to make it a regular thing now to plan it out.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dhammarato.
Okay.
Have a
Well,
good
we'll see you. We'll see
Yeah.
you.
Bye-bye.